even while we were shooting the first one, Kevin was talking about he had an idea for the second, and that he had actually conceived of it, if all went well, as a trilogy, which I found fascinating. I mean, the first attraction to this was just a really terrific first script, but the fact that he had the idea for two more and that it all formed a sort of interconnected story was really fascinating to me. Well, it feels good to finish the Scream trilogy, and it feels a little sad too. I mean, it's been almost family, over the 4 years. But it feels very, very good creatively because I can't think of any other instances of a true trilogy where you have a story that involves the same characters going over the arc of three pictures. So it's been a very interesting sort of directorial job also to watch Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox and David Arquette and all those other characters grow over this span of years. It's quite unique. It used to be in old horror films, if teenagers went to a horror film, it would be the monster from Oozy Lake or something. It was something made up. But in Scream, they talked about Halloween. They talked about, real films that they'd seen and kind of the rules that they had drawn up around those films. So that third wall was broken, and the audience was drawn into a film that was really real people talking about real films. And that, I think that awareness that they were in situations that were similar to films that they'd seen opened that whole door to the way that media, films, and television have influenced the last several generations of kids. It's funny, when you make a film, you're kind of like the proud parent of a new baby. You always think they're going to go on to become president, but the fact is many of them end up living in the attic and you don't talk about them. But with Scream, right away we all knew, my producer, myself, knew that it was a great script. So that feeling was from the beginning. And then while we were filming it, we had the idea, I just had the feeling, filming certain scenes, that this was extraordinary stuff. For instance, the ending scene in Scream 1, when the two killers are, talking to each other while they're bleeding to death. I'd really never seen something that was so wrapped in exquisite irony and sort of shocking newness, and so hip and true in a way, very, very true. So I had the feeling, in fact, I turned to the crew at one point and said, this will never get onto the screen, but if it does, it's going to make $1 bajillion, because it was so different and so shocking. But in the best sense of the word, it was really breaking down barriers and talking about, in a way, violence truly, because it was kids that thought they were really cool doing it and ended up being total schmucks, and their lives collapse around their own shoulders by their own device. So that's quite extraordinary. The making of these three films, another great thing about doing a trilogy is that you get to work with the same actors over and over, and as their characters develop and mature, and find new nuances from the actors and from yourself, and you become very, very close to them. I mean, Marianne and I, part of our theory of making films is to provide a very safe and happy and even silly and fun environment for the actors and for the crew. Everybody's given a lot of respect. We get rid of jerks that are obnoxious right away, and we end up with a core group of people that we've worked with a long time, or in the case of young actors, actors and actresses that feel very safe, like they're in a family. And what's going on with Courtney and David, for instance, you find yourself 3 years later at their wedding, and you realize that they met on your set, and you gave fatherly advice to David, and you counseled Courtney, and they supported you, and when you had doubts about decisions you were making about your career or whatever. I mean, you become friends in a really quite unique and wonderful way, and that holds true for almost all the actors and actresses in the film. We've all stayed in touch. Many of them, of course, have repeated 3 films now, and it's sort of a treasure trove of friendships that has grown out of that I think shows in the films, because we all know each other so much, and and there's a great exchange of ideas. And hey, what if we tried this? Or, I don't think Dewey would say that. Or, this is something I think Gale Weathers would really get, pissed off at. And you end up with these wonderful sort of idea sessions that you wouldn't with people you didn't know that well. Fresh actors and actresses come in that already have their careers started elsewhere, where they bring kind of new characters into the mix. Parker Posey, of course, a lot of fun, very wacky sensibility. You never quite know what to expect from her at any given moment. And a delivery of a line, she'll constantly improvising, constantly doing something completely different from take to take. So you have all these incredible, funny choices to make. So that's kind of the fun of making the new one, is you get the new characters in that bring their own sort of elements into the stew. Well, I think from Screen 3 you can expect more freshness, more surprises, new characters intermingling with old familiar characters in shocking and new ways. And you can also fairly expect a resolution to a lot of things, a kind of returning to the whole theme of the entire three movies, and some shocking, surprising, and almost explicatory revelations about the whole story and the characters behind it. Things that explain what the whole thing meant. Things that will be shocks even to the character of, Sidney Prescott, and to Dewey Riley and Courtney. So that's kind of the fun of kind of summarizing the whole three stories, and then the final revelations of, what was really behind some of the darker secrets of the story. That I think is another kind of refreshing new thing that Kevin brought to this kind of very complicated backstories of parents and lovers and cheats and dissemblers and all these things that you normally don't get in a straight slasher film. All those characters in that film, that first film, could have easily become the cliche versions of other lesser genre films. The stupid sheriff, has been in a million films, but the idea of making him a young guy who's kind of handsome and has a real native wit about him and intelligence was the new thing. The cliche reporter, the pushy reporter has been in a million films, but Gale Weathers has a soft side, and she worries about what she's doing, and she falls in love with this stupid sheriff, that she never would have fallen in love with, but yet she sees something about him almost redemptive. Those are nuances that you just don't get in a film that is, just doing the stock characters. So that's to me, it's always been one of the most interesting things to do in the genre, is to start with situations that could be cliche or characters that could be cliche, and then make it human, because it always catches everybody off guard and makes it much more powerful.